I always want to do that. All right. Welcome to the Livingston Parish Ordinance Committee. Today is Tuesday, March the 22nd, and it is about 6:42 p.m. Okay, Sandy, can you take a roll call?
Mr. Gary Talbert?
Here.
Mr. Bubba Harris?
Here.
Mr. John Wascom?
Here.
Mr. Shane Mack?
Here. Okay, tonight what we wanted to do was review and discuss LP Ordinance number 14-45. Article 5, Minerals, Oil, and Gas, Chapter 9, Licensing and Building Regulations, Mining of Sand, Gravel, Borrow Pits, other aggregates, or other substances from the soil for commercial purposes. We reviewed that ordinance, and we realized that some changes needed to be made. The scope of this particular ordinance covered all types of minerals other than the petroleum gases, natural gases, and stuff like that, such as gravel, sand, dirt, clay, that type of thing. That's the way the scope was written. But after review, we noticed that the body of the ordinance basically was strictly, regulating sand and gravel pits. And we realized that there's a lot of difference between digging dirt pits and ponds and swimming pools and stuff like that versus, digging gravel pits and sand pits and mining the sand of gravel. So what we really want to do tonight is go over the proposed modifications, line by line if we need to, kind of explain the changes. If you got any questions, just raise your hand after we review that particular section. You're welcome to, speak. There's no limitation on how long it's going to take because this is a very important ordinance and we want to get it right and we want to hear y'all's opinion. That being said, let's get down to the meat of it. The first thing that was changed was the scope, okay? Let's see. Let's just go over the new scope. The new scope is specific to the mining of sand and or gravel for commercial purposes. Okay. We went in and we defined mining, we defined sand, we defined gravel, we defined commercial, operator. Those terms are used further down in the body of the ordinance. Okay. So the first, let's review section 9-11.2, the permit application. This part really didn't change a whole lot. What we did was we just kind of modified it to where it was easier to understand, a little bit easier to flow, okay? We're requiring a site plan. Well, first of all, any operator seeking a permit to mine sand or gravel for commercial purpose shall prepare and submit a permit application along with an application fee of $500. That was already in the original. That didn't change, that permit amount, the dollar fee. And the permit application will include, it's going to require a site plan. The site plan shall be of the entire parcel or piece of property or proposed gravel and or sand pit. It shall detail all proposed excavation boundary areas. It shall detail the proposed berm locations and any existing residential and or commercial buildings located within a 500 foot of any proposed excavation area. The existing geographic features of the site, wooded areas, natural waterways, and public or private roads to be used for access. And we would like for the site plan to be to scale. Basically, it's just, we're asking for a little map, describing the geographical area of the site.
Shane,
Yeah, has anybody got any questions about that? Yeah. Okay, hold on. Go ahead, Mr. Gary.
okay, so we basically are eliminating the informal discussion part of this deal.
That's correct.
So we just go straight to an application process instead of going through, I understand, I mean, I wanna make sure, so we're gonna eliminate the informal discussion step, we're gonna go straight to the application process on the application deal, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And
Kevin,
for those of you who don't have a copy, let me just go ahead and say it should be projected on your screen, and we're going to try to scroll through so y'all can see the changes that was made.
I
Okay,
think
so-
there's some copies on the thing, Gerald.
Yeah, that's the current one in place.
This is gonna be the new.
You need one item? Here.
Yeah, I'll look with you.
Well, I'm not sure I got,
Which one you need?
here. Take this one, me and Mr. Bubba gonna
So
utilize.
repeating that, basically what,
You got 16? Okay, that's one we need, 16. Yeah, that's it. We all got one. They just need some out in the audience, that's it.
Kevin Black, Southern Aggregates, District 2. I just have two questions for clarification, if I may. I apologize, I want to jump in. Under definitions, under the word mining, it
Yep.
says the extraction of valuable minerals or other geologic materials from the earth. I would just suggest that you say for this definition, just as a suggestion, just say the mining would just be, because we say it's strictly for sand and gravel, just say anything attributed to sand and gravel, because I could say that, I meant to shut that off, my apologies. I would say that a valuable mineral,
I'm sorry, can you start all over?
I'm sorry, that's okay, yes. Kevin Black. Under the 911.1, the definition of mining, if we're gonna just discuss it as a sand and gravel
Yeah.
ordinance, I would maybe suggest that you just say mining, in this instance, is just for sand and gravel, because if you use the extraction of valuable minerals, I would beg to suggest some of our dirt guys would say that dirt is a valuable mineral, or something else is a valuable mineral. It becomes kind of ambiguous, and it might entertain some things, that, just to throw that out there.
So you're saying mining should
Is that fair to
define
say?
sand and gravel, and then we should just define what sand and gravel is, right?
Well, the point of that, I mean, this is just my thoughts, the point of that definition of mining, it is what it says. It's really just the extraction of valuable materials or other geological materials from the earth. But later on, you'll find that as the ordinance is laid out, it is specific to strictly sand and gravel.
Right, because we also have dirt and clay that we mine and sell
Right.
some of that, so.
Mining's mining, but further down, I think you're gonna find that this is strictly for sand and gravel.
Okay, then I'm fine, sir, I appreciate that. And then my only other question on site plan then at this point is, would you accept, because you're asking for a site plan to scale, would you accept a photograph? Because 500 feet on either side is a pretty good distance, especially if you're close to a residential subdivision. And to have a drawn site plan is costly and kind of cumbersome. Or would you accept an aerial photograph that you can present at the time to show these things versus an actual drawn site plan?
I mean, so Kevin, what you're saying is if we did an overlay, that the photograph was the scale of the original site? Like, for example, if your operation was drawn to scale,
Yes, sir.
and then the photograph overlay matched that drawing, that in lieu of drawing the subdivision next to it, we could use a Google Earth type deal?
That's it.
That would be,
I
that's
mean,
just
Because the Google Earth satellite has scale on it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you could outline, even if they're pretty sophisticated, now you can outline your site
I
and,
think the purpose is if you could take a Google Earth picture with scale and then superimpose your operation on top of that, it would probably serve, without you having to pay to survey a subdivision.
that's what I'm hoping.
That would be fine.
Okay, I just want to clarify that, thank you.
As long as it was to scale and it showed the things that's listed there, That's all they're really looking for.
Yeah,
I just want to
so,
clarify.
yeah, if you brought a Google Earth picture in and then superimpose your operation on top of that,
Yes, sir.
that would suffice. We need a detailed drawing of your operation, but to suffice the whole area, if you could superimpose your gravel operation, your mining operation on top of the Google Earth picture, that would take care of it.
Okay,
As
that,
far as
thank you.
operation, are you talking about just the property?
Your
boundary?
boundaries.
Okay.
So, I mean,
not
basically,
necessarily where-
like, for example, it's your pit now, if you expanded it, you know, if you acquired more land or had to move to another location, take a Google Earth shot, draw your boundaries. And then, when you would also have to have a drawing that outlined where your scale house was and your, you know, where
That'll
you,
be a separate.
a separate deal, where you planned on doing
With
your
the detail.
excavation. But with the two of them together, we could look and say, okay, this is his operation plan, and this is where his plan is with respect to everybody within the 500 foot.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really not specific to what type of site plan, as long as you had a site plan that was to scale and it showed these things.
what it is.
As long as
Right,
they-
right.
It concerns me if I have to draw, you know, exactly where my plant's gonna be, because in 3
Well,
months. it won't be
Yeah.
there.
That's right.
I think the deal is you're gonna know, based on the wetlands, where you're mining at.
Right.
You're gonna know the boundaries. I mean, y'all all know when y'all go in, where the boundaries of where you're gonna mine is, with respect to the wetlands. Now, you might mine an area that doesn't have gravel, and you might not continue there, but, you know, you're gonna at least know what areas you anticipate mining in, I believe. Okay.
Right, just the general areas where you plan on excavating. That little section right there, it really doesn't even really talk about where you're gonna put your plants. It just talks about excavating, rivers,
Have any of y'all looked
you know,
at what
buildings.
we already have on file here?
Say that again?
And we got it right here.
What we already have on file?
Yeah, we do, we got,
Site plans
The
and
site
Mr.
plan
Sam
we've
has.
already produced.
We've already submitted
I
site.
think they're in line with what you're
We
saying.
were in,
Yeah.
I haven't seen.
you know, we were already grandfathered in.
yes,
But they
sir.
asked us to do that. Have y'all been able to look at any of that information?
Basically, a Google
Is
Earth.
that-
I think I saw
That's
the,
what we're asking, will that work? Because that's what works for us, without having to spend a bunch of money on surveying and that type of thing to get this land out.
We can look at it.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
I
I
have one.
haven't seen any
well, I tell you what.
site
why don't-
plans that's
I
already
mean,
been turned
we're
in,
gonna-
but
This is a preliminary deal, they're gonna introduce an ordinance, there's gonna be time for comment,
Yeah.
and sometime between now and when the whole council votes on this, we'll get to planning, some of us will get to planning and review some site plans.
We have.
And if they're not within the guidelines of what we think they need to be, then we'll present that when we talk about it
We're
later.
gonna be doing that this coming Thursday, right?
yeah, we're
We're
voting.
gonna
Thursday.
introduce it this Thursday, to this Thursday, just the introduction. And then you gotta have, you're not gonna have public comments until the posting period's done and all that stuff. So it'll actually be the first meeting though, I think in May or April, we'll actually hear it, so.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
All right, so we got that straight?
Yeah,
As long as it's a picture or a map, you know, to scale, identifying those things, we're good. Okay, the reclamation, plan, that didn't change, okay? That was already in there. We didn't change that. But we did add, what we call a business plan or operation plan, okay? And basically, that's just a business or operation plan that shall include but not be limited to the approximate dates for the initiation, termination of such operation, approximate number of employed personnel, planned hours of operation, amount of gravel and/or sand. Let me get to where we're at here. Let's see here. Let me start reusing this thing. Planned hours of operation, amount of gravel and/or sand to be excavated. This is just a general idea of what your plan is, basically. Okay?
Ms. Shane, I have a question about the reclamation plan.
Yes, sir.
Are we required to have, the slope, the 2-to-1 slope, or did that change?
Yep. Yeah, why don't,
Buddy, why don't you come up and introduce yourself so we can get on the record what you're saying? We can't hear all the recording, to get it recorded.
I'm A.W. Quinn Jr. better known as Buddy O'Quinn with American Sand and Gravel. My question was, the reclamation plan, we were required to have a certain slope on our banks. Did that change?
No.
Okay, so it's not landowners' wishes. Because that's plainly where we went to this last go-round was if it was the landowners' wishes, some of them want steep banks and that kind of stuff. They don't want it all sloped, all beautiful, pretty, up to standard.
Well, what I can tell you is I don't recall anywhere in this ordinance where it talks about requiring a specific slope.
It does.
Okay, where does it talk about
Well,
that at?
they required it when I just got my permit stuff done.
Okay, this ordinance
This is
doesn't
the
detail
old
that.
one, all right?
The old.
Sorry, I apologize, I just want to show Buddy, see,
Okay, well, that was my question, because it was put to me that it's gonna be 2-to-1 slope.
No, when I think, what, Kevin,
sir.
reclamation plan consists of best practice of land use in coastal Louisiana. What, is there a defined slope in that deal?
No, sir, there's not a defined
Okay.
slope in those best
Okay.
practices.
So, but we're gonna avoid those issues like you got at your old deal now, where you get, where you, like when the landowner wants you to restrict the flow of water with a berm, we're gonna avoid those situations.
Well, oh, yeah, absolutely, those are in the best practices, you
Okay.
can't do anything to impede
Okay,
natural
good.
water flow or anything of that, that's in the best practice.
All right.
Thanks for your help there, Mr. Kevin.
That's my pleasure. So we're interested in working very closely and working together with the community.
Oh, we
I
got you,
really-
we understand, that's why we're glad you're here to help us get through this thing.
We're gonna be proposing this thing for adoption Thursday, so we really do wanna take our time and read this and get it right, Kevin.
Right.
Yep. So, did y'all read sections, that C, that business plan? You know what it details, just a basic operation plan. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Discussion going on, hold
All right, we'll wait.
Well, C's basically, if you notice, it's approximations on everything. So that we can identify within the community the impact on people's lives. You know what I'm talking about? Because there's a lot of misinformation that happens. So if the plan identifies the amount of time you're gonna be there, what routes are best. I mean, we got a situation, Kevin's on Caraway Road now, and they're all turning out left. I hope they're all continue to turn out left. You know what I'm talking about? And go straight to Reniger to make their deal. Because, it's best for the community for that to continue to happen. So that's what this is about, is to identify so that there's no misinformation out there. You tell us what you're gonna do, and that the community's got those, what your intent is, and they'll know then what to expect.
All right. For the rest of this meeting, if you got something to say, come on up to the podium. Okay, do y'all have any questions about the sections that we already reviewed?
Come on,
Okay.
Lance.
on. Y'all need to explain it again.
Make sure I'm reading. Lance West with, Cash Sand and Gravel. The business plan operation, this information you're wanting, if it changes as I operate, does that matter? Because I'm gonna move a plant, that's what concerns me. I don't wanna give you a plan saying I'm gonna be here, here, and here, and then,
Kevin, Lance, I think what
Go ahead, Gary.
I think what it's saying is that, you have a business plan, when you go somewhere, you about know where, I assume you take core samples, if you're coming into a used up, coming into it's a
Exactly,
different
see.
situation. But you knew probably how deep the previous people had pumped to a certain, y'all know where the mud flats are, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
You kinda know where you're going, you're not going into new areas.
Well, I'm
You
saying,
just redoing old areas for the most part at your operation you got right now, aren't you?
yeah, but when I go to another operation is what I'm looking forward to.
I
Well,
mean-
I'm saying,
you know-
if what information I give you to the best of my ability.
That's right,
In the
Mr.
permit,
Lance.
if that changes later, y'all come shut me down because
No,
the
no,
information wasn't
no, no.
accurate.
No,
It says an approximation, everything's an
Okay.
approximation, cause let's
That's all I
face
just wanna
it.
make sure about, you know?
When you go in and lease a piece of land, sometimes you know you take core samples, you know how much gravel's there, you know about where the gravel is, you have some
Right.
anticipation. Well, we know, you can tell us, this is how much gravel I anticipate being there. I plan on selling X number of, yards a day, and that can be extrapolated over to however many years you plan on being there. Now, we all understand, if everything was perfect, they'd hit oil every time they drilled. But
Right.
sometimes it's not there. So consequently, this is just an approximation so that when a permit's put before the council, when people come to ask about it, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We'll at least have some idea to tell them it's a 5-year pump out, it's a 10-year, deal, it's a 2-year deal. We'll have some idea as to the length that this operation will exist.
Right.
So that there's, it's from the horse's mouth type thing. Versus people with with a different idea trying to put information out in the community that might or might not be accurate.
Yeah.
So this is what this, I think that, Shane,
You're right on
that's the
point.
intent of this deal.
That's
The
right.
intent of this thing is to,
It's just
for
a plan,
us-
it's really just a plan.
Right.
And it doesn't mean the plan can't change, proposed plant locations,
I just
proposed truck locations, but
Right, I just
Yeah.
wanna make clear, cause you gotta understand, it's a big capital outlay for me to move and start an
Oh, right.
operation. I need to know that, as long as I follow the rules don't change.
Hey, Lance,
So, and-
we be at jobs that all the time to lay sewer line, and you don't know if you got running sand where you dig. And,
exactly. I just want y'all to understand that everything can't be accurate.
I think we understand, but
Thank
the
you.
point is to get that out so we can identify within the public what's happening.
that's right. I've been in the industrial world for a long time, construction business for a long time, and the plan always changes, it seems like. So, not a problem there. Any more questions before we move on? Okay, the parish permitting section. Okay, wasn't a whole lot of changes here. Let me see. Maybe a little. That stayed.
Hey, I can see one thing here that needs to
Yeah.
be addressed.
All right, we can
And
talk
if
about it.
I'm-
Let's, okay,
Okay,
so let's just run through the first little section here. The planning commission shall review the permit applications at the planning commission meeting, and recommendation will be made to the parish council for approval, disapproval, or permitting. The parish permits department shall grant a permit if the application meets the conditions of the below sections in the ordinance, and it is approved by the parish council. It's basically unlawful to remove sand or gravel for commercial purposes within the parish without first obtaining a sand and gravel pit permit. All federal and state laws and regulations shall be followed.
hey, I see one problem with it.
What you got there, Gary?
The parish engineer that reviews all plans, they
Yeah.
have to be compensated by the person submitting. Meaning that, I mean, our parish engineer's a contract situation, you know what I'm talking about? They do some advising on us, but any subdivision review, any review of whatever, the parish engineer bills the person making the submittal. If I'm developing a subdivision, my engineer draws it. He submits the plans to the parish. They've gotta be reviewed.
Right.
And those reviews are then paid by me as a developer. So basically, any person that introduces a gravel pit and they submit plans to the parish, the only way those plans can be reviewed is if they pay the fee to our engineer to review them. They're not gonna be covered in that $500. Just, it's not, I don't think,
We don't currently review plans.
absolutely. If I
Oh, no,
submit.
no, we review them, but we don't charge to
Oh,
review
absolutely,
plans.
absolutely. If, Gerald, you can help me, I mean, if I'm mistaken, you tell me, but every plan that's submitted for review with Fort and Tablada bills the person, but,
The fee has to be paid to the planning department for review. In fact, I think they collected money. for
Mr.
the
Gerald,
review.
can you come up to the podium
Yeah, come
and,
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was Since we're on the planning commission together, one of us was gonna come up here and
Well,
say.
both of you is welcome to come.
That's
Well,
okay.
you can go first.
He's gonna throw it in there, and if I need to, I'll interject. Y'all know who I am.
As I understand it, in any development, by any developer that comes to the planning department first, and they bring their plans, and they have to submit money for review for the review engineer and the planning department, they have to submit fees. Now, the only thing that, I wanted to say.
Let me ask you this, I mean, what determines the fees? I mean,
They have a fee-
unlimited?
They have a fee schedule, it's in the ordinance, in the subdivision ordinance, well, I don't know about in this ordinance, they have a fee schedule.
Don't you always have an
Well,
engineer there
okay.
present at our planning
Let
commission?
me tell you what I know. I've got a couple customers that have recently done convenience stores, as an example. They bring any commercial development, be it a shopping center, convenience store, truck stop, anything. They bring those plans to planning, okay, and they're submitted. Part of the process is those plans go to Fort and Tablada for review. Fort and Tablada is billing the person making the submittal for the review. If they have any changes, they send those changes to the engineer that originally did the plans. He then makes the corrections that they feel need to be made. They send them back to Fort Tablada for final review. Now, depending on the complexity of the stuff, like if you're trying to squeeze the bigger the square footage you're trying to put in a smaller area, meaning if you don't have a lot of extra land for retention and some other stuff that might need to happen, then it can become creative with what Fort Tablada wants and what the engineer can do, and sometimes the fees run up. But it is the process. If we don't have the gravel companies who submit the plans paying Fort Tablada's fees, there's no review that can take place. So it just needs to be noted in there that if I'm mistaken, somebody speak up, but I think every review process.
I think you're correct on that, but I know on subdivision ordinances, the plans is brought before the planning department, there is a set fee for that. Now, if there's problems, the engineer might charge more. There is a set
I know the
fee.
parish has a set review fee, but I think Fort Tablada charges based on the time it takes to review.
Well, I'm not
a set of
100%
plans.
sure about that, but I know the parish has a review fee of all drawings brought forward, but, and I don't know all the ins and outs of the planning department, okay, so I can't really speak for Mr. Sam. But,
Well,
what
I
I
got a
want,
question, I gotta understand this in order to get this right. Okay, so you're requiring the business plan, okay? And the business plan is gonna detail what the ordinance said. What specifically would the parish engineer or planning commission engineer, what exactly is he reviewing?
So, well, you're
The
gonna.
depth of the pits,
Well,
the slope of the
You're
pits?
gonna be reviewing.
The planning commission the planning
I mean,
commission don't normally see things like that, okay? We don't see permit applications, and that's what I wanted to speak on, but, I would imagine that goes to the planning director and review engineer, you know. But I don't know, if you want the planning commission to look at that, then put it in here. You know, you want the planning commission to approve that, approve the business plan, but you put it in the ordinance, okay? What I wanted to speak on, 9.111.3 parish permitting, the planning commission shall review the permit applications. We don't look at applications at all. That's done by the planning department, okay? So that's not our area of expertise. What we look at is a preliminary site plan and all the things that you require on buffers, setbacks and, on public roads and adjacent properties. Those are the types of things that we look at, okay? And we don't look at drainage.
Tell me again what you're looking at?
They're looking at the site plan.
We look at the preliminary site plan. And on the preliminary site plan, it will show adjacent properties, how far away, and detail the buffer zones. That's what we look at primarily, okay?
And that's what I was really
Is
looking for
assigned,
y'all
but we
to
don't
review.
look at permit applications.
We try to make sure that all the ordinances that we are aware of, that we get an ordinance book, that they have all been met when we look at it.
But when this ordinance comes to the planning commission, but permit applications is done by the planning department, not planning commission.
I think,
I agree with you, and it says that. It
No,
says
it
that
says
after
planning-
y'all
No,
review the
it
plan.
it says it shall, the planning commission shall review the permit applications.
I think
We don't do that.
The wording.
It
We have
says,
we
it
have
says,
n-
it says the parish permit department shall grant a permit if the application meets the conditions of that
Well, it's
section.
contradictory.
Okay, it's just
It-
one
it-
paragraph
It's
ahead of another
contradictory,
one.
okay?
Okay, I think.
Reverse
I think,
paragraph.
Shane, the
Second
clarification would
paragraph.
be, under section 9(111.3, the planning commission shall review the site plan at the planning commission meeting and recommendation we made to the parish council for approval, disapproval of the permit.
Anyway, to me, we don't look at applications,
All right,
Unless you
hold on,
want
I
us
gotta
to.
get this straight.
unless you want us to,
Yeah.
but I don't think we need to do that.
Hold on just a
It's
second.
not our area of expertise.
Can you hold on just a second, Mr. Gerald? Let me get this straight here.
Who's the parish engineer that's always sitting in there? What's his name? Not me.
You want to hold on a second.
Who's the parish engineer that always sits in there when we're doing the?
So y'all typically review the plan?
Site
Site
The
plan,
preliminary
business
site plan is all we look at on anything, okay? The gravel pit in question up there at Watson came to us as a preliminary site plan, period. We didn't do anything else.
All right.
And there weren't any ordinances.
All right, so we'll make that change before Thursday, you know, but I want to talk a little bit more about this review engineer. I'm gonna need to go back and get clarification on exactly what they're reviewing
Well,
and what the fees are.
sure, but that is,
I'm new to the planning commission, but
Go
all
ahead,
the
Ms.
meetings I've
Garland, say
gone
what you
to,
gotta say.
all the meetings I've gone to so far, and I haven't missed any, there was always an engineer there. Who paid for him? I don't know.
well, the developer pays for the.
Well, we had several
they do
different,
it. No, the developer always pays for everything that's brought to the planning department. Our developer always pays for that.
well, I mean, I think the point I was making, there might be 3 or 4 things that come to us, but there's only one.
She's talking.
Does he get one
about-
fee?
She's talking about Chad
Yeah.
Bachman sitting there as a Fort and Kablat employee.
Yeah.
Yeah. but that's
Now,
true.
he's
Is he
there,
getting
he's
one
there,
fee?
that's part of the contract with the parish for them to do. But the extra work of reviewing individual proposals is billed out by unit, whether it be hours or whatever, to the person making the proposal.
Traditionally, the review engineer is there to give the planning commission advice on whether the,
Right, and
whether the plans have
he's
been
doing
met.
that, he's doing that as a contract to the parish, as a
Right,
contract
but
to
he's
the parish.
giving advice to the planning commission as he's telling us, yes, they've met all the requirements of the ordinances, okay? Or they have problems that haven't been corrected yet, and sometimes we'll do a motion with a contingency that certain things haven't been done. But he's there to give us advice too.
Shane, I think what we need to do is we need to talk to Sam and,
Right.
and Bobby Batto to figure out how we're gonna address the engineering fees in
Yes.
this and where it's gonna go in this line.
And I'd like to know
item.
exactly what the engineer is looking at. What,
Okay, well,
what
okay,
is-
for example, there's,
Why?
when they submit a plan, there's gonna be stuff that you require. You know, even on the current new deal, there's setbacks, you know what I'm talking about? There's buffer zones that, whether they're amended or not, I don't know, but based on whatever's in here, somebody's gotta review to make sure those things are accurate. You're probably gonna find that this thing's gonna have to go, another thing it's gonna have to do is it's gonna have to go to whatever gravity drainage district for review to make sure that the.
Well, yeah, it'll have to go there. Also, if it's a subdivision, it goes to school boards and drainage
Well, yeah, but it's
districts.
not, this is a
This isn't
subject.
that.
I know, but I'm just saying that other things do.
But typically,
This is the same.
what happens on any commercial development in the parish is it goes to an engineer. When the submittal's made, it's gonna be assigned to an engineer who's gonna review it before it gets to plan.
right,
Well, the preliminary site plan will come out, but at some point in time, it's gotta be reviewed before it comes to the council for final.
I don't know when that is, that engineer looks at that.
Well, he looks at, okay, like, for example, if I'm developing subdivision A, or I wanna build a commercial building, I do all my paperwork, my engineer does all my paperwork, it's submitted to the planning office.
Department. It's
At that
submitted to
point
the
in time,
planning,
it's put on the agenda for the planning commission.
it's submitted to the planning department
Planning department.
and
Yes.
put on
And
the
it-
agenda for the planning commission. You're right.
It comes before y'all.
Right.
Y'all say grace over it, yes or no?
Well, all the problems have to be worked out generally before it comes to the planning commission. It's, when it comes to us, it's pretty clean.
No, when it comes to you, there's been no wet stormwater retention stuff done. It's not been finalized. I mean, it's in there, but it hadn't, I don't think it's had the final stuff set on it. Because it's everything y'all approved the preliminary site plan, if I'm not mistaken.
But all the ordinance requirements on the preliminary site plan is already done ahead of time. Now, we might see something that's an error or something that has to be done, or we might have questions on it, but it's already been done.
Well, I mean, I can just give you as an example, what product is on the outfall of a ditch is not something y'all review in
We
your
don't
planning
look at-
commission, but it is something the review engineer is gonna establish and have
That's what I'm
to.
saying, we don't look at drainage impact studies, period.
I
We used
understand.
to, and that was taken away from us years ago. Let me ask you a question. This ordinance here, y'all broke out the bar pits out of this ordinance, right?
Yes, we did.
Completely out.
But a previous ordinance on bar pits was a 125-foot setback, from any public road.
This ordinance is for digging sand and gravel
Gravel.
pits.
Well, that's my question.
Period.
If the bar pits,
We're gonna go further down deep into this ordinance, and you're gonna see all of that. Listen, just to move this thing forward, what we're gonna do is we're gonna review
Things in it.
the permitting section of this. Probably gonna make some modifications, but I gotta we gotta fully understand exactly what they're looking for.
Next time they have
That type
that
of thing.
planning commission, workshop thing on a Saturday, I think everybody needs to go to it to see what it is, because I've been told, it got canceled because of floods, but, that it's what the state requires, and
And-
what we're doing is,
And I'm just
We've
gonna
not
give
met
you
those.
a personal feeling about it, is I understand when you're developing a subdivision, or if you're building a big commercial building, that, to me personally, is totally different from putting a hole in the ground, digging a
It
gravel
is.
pit, okay? So, I actually purposely took out the section about the engineering reviewing this, but we're gonna go back
okay.
per your
I
recommendation.
mean, I just think somebody with some expertise has gotta review the fact that the things that are submitted are within the
Well, to be
order.
honest with you, what I was thinking, of course, I'm new at this and I got a lot to learn, but Sam sits on the, planning commission, right? Ain't he
Yes,
director?
and that engineer, whoever he
Ain't-
is, and I don't remember his name.
Is
Sam?
Sam not the designated engineer?
He's always there.
Director?
No.
Planning
There's-
commission
there-
director?
Sam's there, but there's always an engineer there, but I don't know his
Okay.
name.
planning director is what he is.
Sam's the
Okay.
planning director.
Who's the
All right.
engineer? Who's the engineer?
Chad
Okay.
Backus is usually.
There's always an engineer there.
Chad Backus is usually at y'all's meeting.
Okay, okay, we'll take an action. We're gonna review that permitting section. We'll get it right. If we need to table it to another meeting, we will. But for now, we'll try to have the changes made before Thursday night.
Can I
on
say
that
just one
section.
thing?
Go ahead.
Please don't get off the rails. We're not a development. We're not a subdivision.
I agree with you hundred
And
percent.
what we're doing, okay, what we're doing is on private property. When we're done, the property owner still retains the property. The parish is not inheriting a road
And
or whatever,
There's
you
no
know, that you're
permanent
responsible
buildings.
for.
That's right.
So I'm saying, we're not a development. Please
That's right.
don't point us towards subdivision or whatever, because we're not.
You're right, Mr. Lance. I agree with you. Okay.
Thank you, Don.
Hey, I mean, I'm actually enjoying this. I'm learning a lot, and hey, it takes more heads than one to get this thing right. This,
We appreciate this too, because
Right.
last council, we didn't have the opportunity to have a back and forth.
where are you going, Gary?
This is
I'm
definitely.
just trash man, I'm kinda OCD.
He gotta get up, walk around.
CDO, that trash is killing me up there, I had to throw it away.
Walk it off, walk it off.
Okay. Section 9-111.4 requirements. This is the meat of it. I'm sure you're gonna have some questions on this part. Kevin's shaking his head, but let's go through it line by line. Let me explain to you what I was thinking. We'll go forward. We may want to read all of it and then go back and take each step, just so, you know, you ain't asking questions about something that's already been addressed. Okay. Number 1, operators must create and maintain a 50-foot setback or buffer zone on any adjacent property line, period. Operators must create and maintain a minimum of 125-foot setback or buffer zone on any adjacent property line abutting an existing residential house and/or commercial building.
When you say create, that does mean when we get to that point, is that correct? Or, I mean, is it expected that we do this right off the bat?
Or just when they start
Just
getting
means you
close.
can't dig closer than that.
It means you must maintain that and create that
Perfect.
before you start the excavation. That's my thought.
We're not talking about the berm, we're talking about a buffer zone. A buffer zone is an area you can't excavate in.
Perfect.
Okay.
No man's land.
Operators must create and maintain a minimum of 100-foot setback or buffer zone from any public road. Excavations may not be conducted within the setback or buffer zone area. However, fences and other buffering structures may be constructed within the setback buffer area. Operators shall construct a minimum 8-foot elevated from ground surface vegetated berm along the interior of the setback or buffer zone of any adjacent property line abutting an existing residential house and/or commercial building. We can talk about these numbers as soon as I'm done running through them. Any water runoff from the berm that causes flooding shall be directed from the berm to the sand and/or gravel pit by the operator. Road access and clear areas shall be maintained by the operator sufficient to provide ready access to fire and emergency equipment. The operator must display and maintain a business sign out at the nearest public roadway entrance to the pit throughout the operation. It must display at a minimum the name of the operator, the contact information, and who to contact in case of an emergency. Hours of operation. Hours of operation for loading or transporting gravel and/or sand shall be 2:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Plant production hours shall be from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. Maintenance of the equipment, plant, and facilities may take place outside of the operation hours. Maintenance shall be defined as those tasks, actions, and activities that are performed for the purpose of maintaining equipment and facilities in satisfactory operating condition. Okay, let's go back up to number 1. Does anybody have any questions on number 1?
They didn't run up there, did they?
I'm gonna refer to the current,
Go ahead.
to the new. New number 1 on 50-foot, actually adds 25 feet based on the current of number 6.
That's
And-
correct.
Okay, and then, but without the within 200 feet, so
Let me,
if there is something, so I'm a little confused, so that just means as long as there's not a home, an existing residential house or commercial
It means
building,
that you
so,
gotta
That's
stay
exactly
50
what that
feet from
means.
the property line,
no matter what.
period end is 50 feet from the property
Gotcha,
line.
okay, okay. Now, on the 125 feet, okay, on the interior, it must be the furthest point from the residence.
Take your time, Kevin. I know this is important to you.
Yes, sir, thank you, I appreciate that.
That's all right, I missed some.
Now, if you have 125 feet on number 2 from adjacent property line, and the house is 600 foot beyond that, you still need that 125 feet.
Yes.
Yes.
You don't wanna,
Why?
okay.
So what's the difference between 1 and 2?
You know,
Well,
because
The one is 50 feet from any adjacent property line, but to me, to protect the people, I felt like if it was a property line with an adjacent house, you know, that you need to be 125 feet off that property line.
Wait, okay, here's the deal, I'm gonna be devil's advocate on this deal, and we're not gonna talk about a subdivision, we're gonna talk about somewhere else, we're gonna talk about Lance's property, for example.
Okay?
Okay, if, do you butt up against Mr. Chandler's place? Who's your next door neighbor over there, Lance?
The landowner.
Okay, how far is his house from your operation?
All right, from the property line lease of my pit, probably 30 feet.
Oh, so he's right on top of
Yeah, but now, like I said, that's the property line lease of my pit. I will not mine anywhere in that area of this particular point.
What?
But then again, why, say if he was 600 feet away from the property line, why do I have to give up 125 feet of my property when he's 600 feet away
That's,
from the property line? You're putting that guy's, or that person's land rights above my landowner's land rights, who's gonna lose 125 feet of their property.
see, that's what I.
You're basically taking 125 feet of my landowner's and my lease's property.
Look, this, I'm gonna just,
All right,
okay,
that's a good point.
here's the deal.
Also with
I-
50 feet.
When
You
I
say
wrote
my
that,
property-
I was thinking about Watson houses, subdivisions, 1 acre, 2 acre lots,
Well,
okay?
maybe,
To
maybe,
quote
it's-
something
If
I
you have a
said,
40 acre plot of land adjacent and the house is, I don't know, a long ways away, I don't see.
You know,
the point.
common sense has a lot to do with
Well,
what we do
Yes,
for a
it
living
does.
as well.
Yes, it does.
why can't we do 50 feet, period? Because you're
Well-
already taking 25 feet from it.
I don't wanna do 50 foot.
well, here's the deal. I mean, let's face it, houses are where people live. So, I understand a buffer zone on your property against somebody else's property. What is the state law on a buffer deal? Is there a state law on excavation?
Must
As
not
long as
be,
the integrity of the property line is maintained.
Okay.
right.
But now, we've seen situations between your operation, where you dug up next to him and y'all can't even maintain the integrity of the property line anymore. I mean, am I,
Sure.
yeah, okay, I guess my point is, what we're trying to do is protect people's homes.
Correct.
So maybe the distance needs to be from the primary structure and not
To the house.
yeah, well, like, I mean, for example, if, let's just look at Oak Hills as a specific example. Let's make if the distance was measured from the primary residence in Oak Hills to the buffer zone, what is that, you know, we're saying 125 foot from a property line, and we've already got a 50-foot property line buffer in there anyway. So maybe we could go, 150 foot from the residence, or, you know what I'm saying, then you maintain.
That possibly could put them right on top of the property line, though.
Well, with the 50-foot buffer zone, but the property not gonna be
50 feet
overridden.
anyway.
Well, we keep the 50 foot from the property line.
The 50 foot,
They can't go past
It's
50 foot.
100, if I may, I'm sorry. I think,
Yeah,
in fairness, it's like 150 from the residence, but a minimum of 50 off the property line. So to your point, Shane, if the 150 brings you to the property line, we can't do that. We have to have the 50-foot minimum.
So they can't.
So in that situation, you'd be 200 foot from the home. But another situation, so the 50 foot is maintained no matter what. So that's your minimum line. So if you're 150 and you land inside the person's property, you still gotta be 50
I
outside
mean,
the fence. If you land outside of the 50, maybe that.
the
takes
deal is
precedent.
creating the buffer between the residence and the commercial activity.
Okay.
So if you're gonna have a 50-foot minimum between the excavation and the property line,
Yeah.
that's primary.
Like 150 or 50,
That's
whichever is greater.
primary. But where there's a house, you're gonna measure from the house, not from the property line. See, what happens is if you set it up at 125 from a property line that has a house, you could end up with an 800-foot buffer from the house. if the house is set far enough off the property line, which is excessive.
You eating that
What we're
landowner
trying to
land.
do is protect the people who live in the house. So we wanna create a buffer zone from the house to the excavation, whatever that might, whatever you determine, whatever the council determines. That's the most that's the most.
Well, that's true to a certain point, but I actually would like to also protect the people in the subdivision's property. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, I mean, you're right, but I mean,
But yeah, but I do think
Whichever's
that
greater.
both of y'all, I understand what y'all saying, I think you're right about it, and we're gonna make a change. I'm thinking now how we're gonna make this change, but
Hey, there was a suggestion here, how about if you just worded it 125 feet or 50, whichever's greater?
well, let me think about it some more. That's a pretty serious decision that we're making right here. Let me think about it more.
Well-
I understand y'all's intent, and I agree with you, but dealing with the subdivision, I also would like to protect those people's property.
we
Because
definitely gotta protect the people.
those people in the subdivision's property is just as important to them as the house almost,
But
you know what I'm
the
saying?
silent
So,
person here, you have to consider also,
The
is the
landowner.
gravel pit, the house, but the landowner of the property the pit's on. You
Right,
gotta
I
figure
do.
his rights in there too. You know,
I-
everybody needs to try to get the best protection.
I do agree with you, and if you got a house, I don't know, half a mile away, say it's 200 acres property,
shouldn't have to be
no, you should not have to be 125
And-
feet
And just to
away.
clarify.
I'll
beg your
fix
pardon,
that.
That's okay, clarify one other thing, if we're gonna, whatever your buffer zone is, I heard the word excavation. Well, what about a road that you're not gonna excavate on? Because we may not be excavating in that area. We may just have that as an area where staging, trucks or, or something of that nature. So it's a non-excavable, like we talked about. It might be an area that just doesn't have gravel on it. So do I still have to maintain that buffer? Because there's really no noise or traffic or dust gonna be created in that area. So do I really need a 125-foot buffer there?
Well, if you're not, I mean, so,
I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna
Okay.
fix it.
hey, I do have a question.
Go ahead, buddy.
Okay,
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead, Mr. Gerald.
All you really gotta do is delete on any adjacent property line abutting and just go straight from buffer zone on any existing residential or commercial building. And do away with adjacent property line and what they say would work out. See, it ain't the property line you're looking at, it's the existing
well,
house.
and he's
Yeah,
gonna,
but
he's gonna
it's
think
the
on what,
existing house. That's all
what
you worry
footage he
about.
wants, and
Not property
he'll
line.
do that, and there'll be public comment on it later.
You know what, you're right about that, but that 125 might not work out. We're gonna talk about that some more.
Okay,
Or 50, whichever's great.
Yeah, yeah.
I do have a question.
Okay.
And Kevin, you gotta help me, cause I'm somewhat confused. In the old ordinance, the berm had to be on the edge of the buffer zone. Am I correct?
The interior, the
Or it's
interior.
going back inside.
Okay,
Right.
now, I'm not a sound expert by any stretch of imagination. But the closer the berm is to the residence, the more effective it is in reducing noise. Am I correct in that?
You know, we talked about when we visited and we did our,
Sound.
reviewing of the gravel pits, and I took that into consideration. But I don't think the people in the subdivision want the dirt berm adjacent to their property. So I'm thinking, I know they want the noise reduction, but they're also gonna want that berm as far away from their property line as
Yeah,
possible.
they're
But you
thinking
can't have
that
them
berm,
both.
that's where the noise
To your
stops.
point,
at
and
one,
you're
but-
absolutely correct, sound will hit that berm, it will ride over, and if you have a 125-foot clear space to the property line plus another, that sound's is gonna migrate down in there on the other side of the berm.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
if the purpose of the berm is sound reduction, it's moot.
Let's,
It's not really the only purpose, it's also a little bit of site reduction. It kind of gives them
I guess,
get it off their property.
I guess the deal is, this is an introduction.
Go ahead,
I mean,
man.
this is a hammering out idea.
That's right.
And there's only one group here that's making comments. And so we know that in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is, there's gonna be a whole nother group that makes comments. So I'm just pointing out.
No, I agree with you.
I'm just pointing out situations.
I agree
that
with you.
That when you and I went out there that day, and we were at Lance's pit, right? And we stood up next to the berm. You couldn't hear the boat.
That's right.
But then the further we went away from the berm, the more
right.
audible the boat became, even though it was a further distance. But because the berm was there to move the sound around us. So it's just something that needs to be considered, because it's, in your particular ordinance here, it's not identified as to where the berm is built.
Yes, it is.
Or did I miss it?
It just
Where is
says
it at?
Along the interior of the setback. So it's
Exactly.
just
Oh, okay,
inside.
I
It
got
doesn't
you.
say on the furthest edge, so I think to the point I'm reading it, that it's just within that.
Within that,
It's in, it doesn't say it has to be at the furthest edge, it doesn't say it has to be up against the
Well,
property line. just-
Hold on a
we
second,
need to
because
clarify.
The intent was to be on the interior of the, buffer zone,
One way, all the way the other.
as further away from the neighboring property as possible.
We probably need to clarify that, because I read it as
Anywhere.
being a change, and so that's why I wanted to bring up, but it probably needs to be clarified at some point.
All right, this is, let's see here. Hang on just a second.
Right, because see, right now it can go anywhere, which is good.
See, if in the current regulation, it says a berm must be positioned at the farthest point from the residential side of the interior end, but within the interior of the 125-foot buffer zone. And yours says, the new one says,
The interior of the setback.
interior of the setback, which means anywhere in the setback.
Yeah, that's gotta change.
Okay, so I mean, you need to clarify that. I just wanted to.
I agree with you.
Okay.
But just to the point of clarification, if the residents are looking for noise reduction, that won't solve that.
Right.
And I agree with that too.
Yeah.
But I think it's a site thing too.
Well,
I mean, I don't know, I just,
so we have a road on
they
that.
don't, I don't think they want the dirt piled up.
Dirt, they're
Adjacent
just
to the
dirt,
berm.
dirt,
Not dirt,
whether it's
the berm.
50 feet or 100 feet, it's the same dirt.
Shane, another thing too, is we use those areas for roadways as well. I don't think they want the trucks traveling on the backside of the berm.
Inside, next to
That
them, we have to
berm.
maintain.
That would be a very
and
not
to
smart
build
thing to
them.
do.
All the traffic to build the berm is gonna be between the property line and the berm, if you stick it all the way out there. If you bring it closer back in, we can do the berm work from the pit side. to
And
build
use that
it
as road
and to
area.
maintain.
and maintain them on the pit side. And you're cutting down the dust and the noise that's gonna be between.
I'm glad
the
you
berm.
said that, because we definitely need to clarify that. So you're telling me that
We use that
it
area
is
for roads.
acceptable practice to run only, I guess in the
Build
past,
berm.
you had never had a berm that was created between a
We had
subdivision.
berms,
We always have
never-
berms, we have
You know,
berms.
lines.
But your intent would be to run trucks
For building.
between the
Build-
berm and the subdivision houses?
Yeah, to
To
build
build
and
it and
maintain the
maintain
berm.
it.
Well, and also, if I may, is because you're cutting that many footage out, I'm gonna try to mine as close to the berm as possible, so my only road access is gonna be on the other side of the berm. So I'm gonna be running my trucks up and down, my construction trucks, my loaders, all my equipment, because that's my only roadway.
All right,
So it'd be better if the berm were, if you rather have my road on the outside of the berm than the inside of the berm.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, maybe what we need to,
How's
maybe,
that going to affect?
All right,
a
all right.
subdivision?
maybe what we need
I'm
to,
thinking-
maybe
I'm
what we
thinking-
need to look at doing
Dust
this.
control if you have houses there.
All right.
To run down the.
all right, it would be to
Then I
my
have to do a
intention,
Dust control situation on that side as well.
Yeah.
it would be to my intention, just throw me your thought out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I was in the subdivision, I wouldn't want you traveling on the other side of the berm unless you were specifically repairing the berm or constructing the berm.
Right.
Okay, so we'll go back and we'll review that.
That's why I just wanted
This
to
ain't
bring it
gonna happen
out.
Thursday
No, I
night.
appreciate that. And then, and on the berm height, if I may, I wanna throw that out.
This thing
there.
might
I
have to get
understand what you're saying.
deferred.
Go ahead, I'm ready to go to the next one whenever you're ready.
But we're gonna look at that because if I was in the subdivision, I wouldn't want you running the trucks.
No, you don't.
You
No.
don't, neither do
Well, we
they.
don't want
We
to
don't want
either.
to
Here's
We
the
wanna
deal,
keep
here's the
everything on
deal.
the inside of the berm.
Here's the
They're
deal.
in agreement,
Sandy,
they wanna
Sandy.
do everything on the pit side, not the outer side.
As long as he submits as long as he submits an ordinance, the ordinance can be amended the night of public input and ratified.
It's just really bad because if you amend it several times, you have to state what the amendment is, each one.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
it's
you-
not that big a deal to push it back 2 weeks.
Okay, I'm just whatever. I'm just
I wanna
letting-
get it right.
Yes,
You
please.
brought up a good thought right there because I wouldn't want you on the other side of the berm running up and
And
down.
we don't wanna be on
They
that side.
don't wanna be on the other side, so y'all in
Okay.
agreement there.
Yep,
But if I may,
Yeah, we're in
about
agreement.
the
How
height
about
of the
that?
berm, I'll stand up again.
They can hear you.
All right, I got two concerns about the height of the berm. Number one
Okay.
is, you have a minimum 8 foot. Well, there are some areas that may not have enough dirt depending on the length of the berm.
that'll give you 8 foot, and this was brought up at the last council. And they said, you don't expect us to bring dirt in to build a berm. That's kind of ludicrous. So I think what we have to do is put in, you can put some language in, I'm not disagreeing with the berm, but I think we have to be reasonable about what is the opportunity. If a site will only let you build, let's say you must build, let's just use Oak Hills as an example. It's 4,000.
Let's face it, this is what started, that's what
yeah.
started the ordinance.
It's over 4,000
From
foot
Elephant
is the
Road.
property line, the adjacent property line, 4,000 feet. I mean, when you do the math, that's a heck of a berm. And the reality of it is, you'll never build it, you can't build it first. You build it as you mine. So that berm will take 4 years to build. Just flat out being transparent about it, okay? So, and we would have to dig in areas, we're gonna be digging in areas that we will not mine just to get that dirt, to build that berm. But some properties may not have that opportunity. Some property sizes, now I'm building, that's gonna be one of the larger sites, probably the largest site in Livingston Parish that we'll see again, quite honestly. So all these other sites are gonna be smaller. Well, if anyone has any kind of subdivision adjacent property line, the opportunity to build that berm may not be there because the dirt may not be there. So I think we have to take into consideration is when you submit your site plan, if you submit it and say, I'm gonna build a berm here, however, then the dirt will only allow me to go 6 foot. If I go the whole length, then what?
Okay, so.
Kevin, we're gonna need to talk some more, because that wasn't my intention.
Okay, so let me clarify.
I'm thinking, go ahead.
Y'all had some discussion when this thing was before the last council.
Right.
That you talked about based on the depth of gravel. You were gonna be forced to mine gravel in an area that you normally wouldn't mine just to acquire the dirt.
That's correct.
Now, we've reduced the amount of dirt by a third.
Right.
I thought I had all this.
Am I correct? I mean, actually more than that. because-
25%.
Huh?
By 25%.
Co-chair?
Is that all it is?
Yeah, because
No,
12
I don't
to
want to
8,
miss nothing.
12 to 8 is 25%, right?
Well,
I can
we've
put
cut it
that
down a third. I mean.
Hey, guys, we gotta take a 5-minute recess.
Channel 17, proudly serving the Florida parishes.
The ordinance fee is now back in session? In session. All right, where did we leave off here?
We left off the fact that,
In the requirements section.
we left off that we need some clarity on the 8-foot berm.
Yes, sir.
And then, was there any other concerns? There were no other concerns other than the 8-foot berm and the
Where to put the berm?
where to put the berm, and then we talked about the size. Now, exponentially, the shorter you get, the narrower the berm becomes, right? So exponentially, you're gonna use way less dirt on an 8-foot tall than you are with a 12-foot tall. So what was the slope on the berm? Did we clarify what that is?
No.
Well, remember now, the 12-foot berm was unrealistic as well.
Well, I'm not denying, but it was the law of the parish, and it still is at this point in time. But, okay, so if we got a 12-foot berm, what's realistic? 3-to-1 slope? 2?
Why do we have to clarify that?
Well, come on, we're gonna talk about the amount of dirt we're saving, because Kevin's saying that sometimes he can't build an 8-foot berm. We're gonna talk about how much dirt we're saving right now.
No,
That's a good idea, Gary.
to your point, in my situation, that's correct, but remember, we're not cookie cutter operation.
Oh, I understand, I know.
That's why,
I know
if this
what
is
you're
gonna be an
saying.
encompassing ordinance, is why I spoke out.
Okay, typically in Livingston Parish, gravel is at what depth?
It goes to about 45 foot.
So, when does it
Where does it
normally
start?
start?
From 0 to
Okay,
25 feet.
okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
at 25 feet, you don't have a gravel pit there. You're not gonna dig 25 feet of dirt.
Right, I understand,
Right.
so,
And there are parts on my property, for example, the easterly tract, I have areas that gravel doesn't start till 25 feet, and I have areas that gravel starts about 12 feet. So it just depends. Everybody's different. God has a sense of humor.
so let me ask you a question. If we set, I don't even know how to do this.
Man, I got a plan.
What's your plan?
Just don't dig a gravel pit if you can't afford to build the berm. Next to the property.
What about,
That's just what I'm thinking.
That's where the problem
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Well,
Y'all are forgetting the property owners that own this property.
And they want the gravel
You
and
see,
stuff
you're
back.
worried about the other guy, but what about the man that owns that property?
okay, so I guess what I'm trying to, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if you're pumping in a particular area, okay, so the berm needs to be maintained during the excavation. At what point in time can the berm be eliminated?
Say that again.
During the reclamation plan,
At the end.
At the end.
yeah, at the
So
end,
During
you can't,
specific phases of the reclamation plan.
Right.
Because you can't just say at the reclamation, because I'm gonna reclaim a section of my property, and I'm still mining a section of my property, because it's,
Reclamation's ongoing.
you can't.
no, I mean, that's what I meant. I mean, you're gonna start at point A pumping, and you're gonna pump along this line. Am I correct? Is that kind of what you're gonna do? So you're gonna dig the overburden, you're gonna create a berm, you're gonna put a pump boat in there, you're gonna start pumping. And then as you move forward, you're gonna continue to dig overburden and create berm. At some point in time, when you've left that berm behind and you're not pumping there anymore, that dirt is then used to reclaim.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
That is one, yes, that's one philosophy, correct.
Or you could use that overburden back here to continue to move forward to create the berm if you have a prairie that doesn't have enough dirt.
Yeah, but he's still in operation on the property. How can he remove berm while he's still operating on the property?
Yeah, but we're not requiring the berm to be built ahead of time. We're gonna build the berm as we move forward. So after you leave an area, then the berm could then be eliminated. Am I way off base?
Where they're doing it, right?
I mean, I guess I got a lot to reconsider here, we got a lot to reconsider, but to be honest with you, the way I was thinking was you're gonna go in there and you're gonna construct a berm, and then you're gonna go dig your gravel and conduct your business.
Hey, that's not, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go in and I mean, now typically you strip a decent sized area to start. But you don't.
We don't.
I don't.
They don't.
I mean, I strip, to start a pit, we strip at about, well, per hole, like, for example, we were proposing to do 2 dredges. So we would strip probably about 6 acres, 3 acres of dredge to start. But then we strip an acre a month per boat, depending on how aggressive we're mining, depending on the hours of operation we're allowed and so on, what the gravel depth is, what's the percentage of the gravel, how much the boat can pump in a time frame. That tells us how much land we need to strip at what period of time in front of the boat. For example, so, is that fair to say, guys?
Because what happens, you got, okay, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, stripping's startup costs. There's no revenue coming in to stripping, it's just straight startup costs with respect to a gravel operation. So you don't strip the whole thing. You strip it, start building the berms, get the money flowing, then as you need to access gravel, you'll continue to strip and build the berm along. Always offering protection with the people that you're pumping by. Am I correct in the intent about?
In this operation.
Yeah, and that-
When you're in this operation, we try to sell dirt. So I strip 30, 40 feet in front of my dredge at a time, or try to sell it, then I stop. Now, he burns an acre a month, I'll go through 3 or 4 acres a year, maybe. You see, that's the problem we got, it's the cookie cutter thing, we're not
Yeah,
all the same.
I see no easy solution here.
And he doesn't.
Exactly.
This is not gonna happen Thursday night, Gary.
Okay. I mean, I understand.
He doesn't do dirt at all, so he
I don't know
doesn't.
what y'all call, I'm gonna call them a reclaim pit, you go in after somebody else?
Right, that's what we do.
Well, do those pits already have a berm around them?
No.
No,
Some of
way
them are
back
old.
in the
Just
old
like-
days.
Oh, okay,
30 years
okay.
old.
Well, that's the reason I'm asking, I don't know.
Right,
No, that's okay.
And, see, I don't have the dirt.
Right, to build a berm.
And, even my pit, when I had a little virgin ground, which, that they didn't fool with before, my overburden may be 2 feet, and then
Okay.
a gravel pit, basically what we're doing, you think about a sandbar on the river.
Right.
We're pumping old ancient sand bed bars that the river laid down. they're up and down. The dirt on the same place, it's up and down. The gravel goes deeper, shallower, it may not be gravel, a shelf may come up, it all changes. You can drill to your heart's content, get a decent idea of what you got. Till you get the dredge out there in it, you don't know, that'll tell you.
I'll let y'all dig
I
on
thought I
my
had
place.
ground over here, oops, it's not there. And this over here looks like junk.
So what-
We pull the dirt off, best gravel I got.
So what you tell me, a reclaim pit is an entirely different operation than a gravel pit?
Right.
Yes.
Well, it's different.
Well, it's
It's
different
not
in the
a-
sense that you don't have to start it up.
There's no
You don't have
overburden, because the
disposable
overburden been dug
I have no
already.
disposable
You don't have
material.
disposable material.
And even if
Right.
I do get a virgin piece of property and lucky enough that the overburden's 3 or 4 feet, I'm gonna sell as much of that as I can. At 3 or 4 feet, I will have enough to build a massive berm all the way around before we start.
Because our obligation is to the
Let me-
landowner. Landowner wants to maximize their revenue off of their ground.
Yeah,
Right.
That's their rights.
sure.
Well, maybe
I got-
we should look at, the reclaim pits and
In a different way.
work something in, you know, so they don't have to have a
Actually,
burn.
there's one
on the old.
reclaim pit in operation this me.
Yeah.
When I'm done, they're over, so you won't, and I'm grandfathered. So right now, whatever y'all do at my existing location won't affect me anyway.
Right.
But I'm gonna have to start a new location sooner rather than later, so,
Yeah.
you know, that's why I'm here on the ordinance, is trying to get what we deal with in the future.
Yeah.
But, I'm probably the last
Okay, so,
reclaim that's gonna be.
so let's talk about, so we got some clarity. We got an issue with 2, right? I mean, we all understand there's an issue with 2. There's an issue with 5, right?
Yeah, there's an issue with 5.
Okay, there's an issue with 2, issue with 5.
Okay.
We go through 9C. Any more issues that anybody wants to talk about?
The hours of operation is one of the things that's, we have to dig sand. And it's, a lot of times after I shut down at 5 o'clock, I have a 2 or 3 hour window that I have to maintain.
Would that be considered maintenance?
Is that maintenance?
That's
Because
what
I'm actually stacking material.
As long as you're not selling it or trucking it.
Can you
that's
come up to the
operation.
podium and ask that question? I gotta fully understand this question.
They're saying it's maintenance, but I just want to clarify it. A lot of times after my operation closes at 5 o'clock, we have to
I
dig
think
sand.
I went to 6 o'clock on this, but go ahead.
Well, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 hours for the sand to dry enough for me to get out there on it.
And that's what,
And
and I
start
think,
digging it out of a hole.
and I think if you'll read, it says maintenance shall be defined as those tasks, actions, and activities that are performed for the purpose of maintaining equipment and facilities in satisfactory
Well, I'm digging
operation.
this sand out to sell it. So, I mean, that's what I'm talking about is
Well, you
it,
talk, yeah,
But
but you
you're
still,
not gonna be selling.
but what you,
Not at
but,
that time.
but
Just
wait a
move
second, you're digging tailings.
tailings, that's correct.
And if you don't dig the tailings, you got nowhere else for the next set of tailings to
Gotcha.
go. Okay, so you gotta clean your tailing area up.
Maintenance.
Right.
Okay.
Thank y'all for clarifying that.
I think that was one of the things that we learned in the site visits to a couple places, is that, I mean, at some places, they're able to, because of their operation, they're constantly dipping tailings. Was that what that guy was doing the other day, Kevin? He was moving tailings constantly.
Yeah.
While y'all-
While they were pumping.
Yeah.
And Lance, because of the size of your operation, you take the same piece of equipment that was loading and go move the tailings later.
Right.
Okay. So it just depends on the operation as to how the deal works, but the moving of the tailings is maintenance to create the ability to continue to run, because if you got no place to put them, you can't run the pit.
In the event that you had a night contract or something come up, do we have room or any other way to be able to
You can apply for
A
load
lot of
it?
interstate work.
I think that situation's just a variance.
Because we
Yeah.
remember we talked about this, and that's when we just get a variance.
So that's what we'll do, is
And
just
let them know that.
bring that in front of the council if it comes
Just
up.
come ask for a variance for a period of time for a specific contract, and there'll be a start and stop date, and we'll just have to address it.
Well, a couple of weekends ago proved that, I mean, whenever we needed all the sand and everything for the sandbags, y'all was probably working around the clock to keep us supplied, so.
I was running from the water where I was at.
I'm sorry
There
about
wasn't no
that.
getting on in mine.
I was selling sand.
Okay, let's
Okay, so we ran through those requirements.
Next page.
Many notes noted. The inspection and enforcement authority section, it didn't change a whole lot. I don't think it changed at all, to be honest with you. That's basically it.
Okay, 911.7 can probably be eliminated. 9-111.7, we have an existing ordinance, so you're either grandfathered in or you're a new operation. There's somebody that's already, so that part of the ordinance doesn't even need to exist anymore. Am I correct on that new ordinance? I mean, there's no grandfathered in anybody anymore. You either have already been grandfathered in or you're having to follow the terms of the current existing ordinance. So there's no need for 9-111.7.
We were already grandfathered in, so.
Right, so there's no,
New has started.
so any new ordinance that's passed, everybody will operate under that new ordinance.
Right.
There's no grandfather anybody else.
On new pits, yeah, anything, yeah. It's not
Well, you already grandfathered now. There's
Right,
no,
that's what I'm saying.
there's, so
Anything
you
new
were
is gonna be
grandfathered in the existing ordinance, there's no more grandfathered. It's over with.
Okay. Scratch
Taking it
that
out?
one.
I'm gonna have to send you another copy. I'm gonna have to-
If you take that out, then that makes them not grandfathered.
That's right.
Yeah, we have to be grandfathered because,
Yeah.
I can't, a lot of this stuff.
I
in
just
here, I'll
leave it
never be able
number
to
one.
manage that.
Number one, you don't need number two, because we've already done that.
Right.
So existing are.
Okay,
That's
you're
what
right, you're right. I understand what you're saying. So one stays and two goes. Okay.
Because two's already been done.
What section?
9-111.7, one stays and two goes.
Okay.
Because there's no more 30-day requirement.
Last part that says except for 911.7, number 2. Stated below. Read the end of your number 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We've discussed a lot of,
Enforceability, what's it say? Is there a difference in that?
no, I didn't change anything on
Okay.
enforceability.
Okay, so,
That-
look,
Go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go.
After reviewing and after the meeting tonight and all the discussion about the gravel pit ordinance, it's in my opinion that we need to take a step back and make some more modifications. And these modifications that we're gonna need to make ain't something that we can make, quickly, okay? So,
But
go ahead.
But for the most part, I mean, there's some areas.
This whole berm thing,
Well, I understand,
It is-
but
it's a big deal.
let's clarify. The definitions is the issue on mining that we need to look at. The mining
Definitions.
definition.
no, we don't need to look at that.
Okay, you're good with that. Then we've got in 911.3 parish permitting, we need to probably change the application to say site plan. And then we need to note who pays for plan review. And then we've got 2 and 5 that seem to need clarification. But for the most part,
And
everything else seems to be okay. Now we just need, I'm gonna be honest with you, you gotta review that, but part of the process requires input from the other side who chose not to come.
Yeah,
And so we're trying to protect or suppose what they want, and I mean, as a representative of them, I mean, I wanna be sure they're protected and they're well represented, but I understand. They should.
Here.
But the fact of the matter is, it's not far off.
it's not really, but to me, the berm, there's some major concern about the berm.
I agree.
Constructing the berm, and when do you build the berm, and when can you remove the berm and modify the berm? The berm is a big deal. We're gonna have to talk more about this
We'll get
berm.
from the other side when they start complaining.
Well, I mean, the one person
I mean,
who contacted me, wait a second, the one person at Oak Hills who contacted me about this meeting tonight, or about when they read the agenda. You know, I told them this meeting was tonight. And this is kind of where we're at, so.
I got a couple of questions about this berm. I mean, does it have to be a constructed vegetative berm? I mean, what about a wall, fence? Have you ever seen it? How big a deal?
We went over that in the other ordinances with fences and walls.
Extremely
and-
expensive.
You're
Very
talking about
expensive?
a large
Well,
expense.
that's what I was
very
gonna
large
ask, yeah, which
Okay.
one would be best cost-wise for y'all?
Let's go steal
Dirt
one off
berm,
the
yeah.
interstate, we got a lot of them.
Yeah, offense, you think it's $22 an 8-foot section?
Yeah.
You know, like y'all said though, y'all brought up something that was important to me. Y'all said about, you know, maintaining in front of your, I'm assuming the barge.
Or
You would
probably-
maintain a buffer zone there. You know, if you have the material to do that, the disposable material, we must remember this, then that's a good plan. But what do you do if you don't have it? In my case.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're gonna have to do some serious brainstorming here on this berm. I don't think it can be
Come
done very
back out
quickly.
and have another look.
Right.
Especially
Well,
when
they have-
So,
This is not easy, we knew
Let's
that.
see, where's my calendar?
We knew that, we don't, so it's,
yeah. Let me look at this.
What's the alternative?
Ten after 8.
And the problem with all this is every site is different.
yeah.
Well, and look, we've seen that. I had been to your place a long time ago.
Yeah.
Kevin took us to review, you know, where his new, you know, where they crossed over the creek at the new thing on coming off Caraway. We've been to Lance's. I've seen buddies from the highway. I mean, you know, I mean.
that comment?
That was you, wasn't it?
No, I didn't. No, I read it. I mean,
Next meeting is the 14th.
so,
But one thing we do is appreciate y'all,
Most definitely
talking,
appreciate
this is
y'all.
what we didn't have last time. No-
well, let me just tell you. I think the original thought of this, of a lot of members of this council was to come in and repeal it. And I've done a lot of talking and asking that we work as a group to protect the people, to protect the subdivision. I mean, let's face it, it's basically, the old ordinance was written to protect one subdivision. And so consequently, I wanna be sure that we don't repeal it, that those people, you know, deserve some protections, and with juggling landowners' rights at the same time. And so, trust me, some of these guys, I think, would have been much easier, especially since they've sat here tonight, would have been easier just to yank the plug on the old ordinance and go back to the way it is. And I appreciate the effort that they all putting in. And y'all coming up to show so that we can still continue to try to protect the rights of the people that, you know, that live in Oak Hill, so.
Well, surely, 'cause it's a different time from when we first started, when it was knock on the guy's door and shake his hand and discuss what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, the river used to run where Watson is now. You know, where the river ran is where the gravel is. And so, you know, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think Mr. Easterly, when they dug Easterly Lakes, if he had had any idea when they started digging those ponds, what he had there, he'd have deferred that subdivision a long time ago. But, you know, I mean, so it's just a different, you know, he was too far along at that point in time to do. And he saw it in that piece of property, and he's trying to do something different in this piece of property. I think it's gonna be a nice subdivision when it's all said and done, but it's gonna be a long struggle to get there.
Okay, let's move a little forward here. I'm proposing that this ordinance committee meet again on this gravel pit ordinance, April the 5th at 6:30. We'll make those modifications, we'll do a little more research.
I invite y'all to
Try
come
to-
to my pit as well and come see what we have where I'm at.
We'll
I don't
try.
think anybody experienced 30 foot of water.
We'll try. You got the Easter holidays in there.
Oh, yeah.
We'll try to come out there. not promising.
When's the next date?
It's gonna be April the 5th, it's a Tuesday, right? Yeah, at 6:30. Talk about gravel pits.
Okay, John, you wanna talk about lighting?
So now we're gonna move on. Y'all free to go if you'd like,
Wait a second.
but
Are y'all-
we're gonna,
are- Is the current ordinance now just like still in effect?
yes,
Absolutely.
Until,
yes.
Yes.
This, if you'll look, the agenda item is
just to discuss.
it's gonna be a rescission and implementation of a new ordinance. We're not gonna eliminate the ordinance until we have something new in place.
Right.
And if we do, I'm just gonna be a screaming nanny up here, but, I mean, you know.
And you talked to one person from the
Again?
subdivision?
Yep, I'm ready to go to the next item on the agenda, guys. Okay, this is gonna be discussing of a lighting ordinance.
No, I'm against.
Recommendation of John Watson.
I'll make this real quick, guys. I appreciate y'all letting me, put this on here. What it is, it's a lighting ordinance. I got a copy for each one of you. It's not even in ordinance form right now. I'm just gonna tell you a couple things I'm thinking. It sets a little bit of standards for some lighting. For instance, the purpose of this section is to regulate the spillover of light and glare on motorists, pedestrians, and adjacent land uses from a commercial use light source. Any lighting used to illuminate an off-street parking area sign or other structure would be arranged as to deflect light away from any adjoining residential zones or public streets. So if you put up lights outside on the parking lot, try to be courteous of your neighbor, keeping the light from spilling over into someone's house if they're trying to sleep at night or something like that. And I put Lafayette's lighting ordinance and a couple other ones. If y'all just look through it, if you have any thoughts or ideas, scratch it or cull it. I don't want to make this too overbearing, but just to make people aware when it comes to lighting, when you light up parking lots, commercial streets, or.
So you got somebody else's ordinance you want to scan and send us, or?
Well, I've got a couple different ones. I've got about 3 or 4 different sections from the city of Lafayette and different places. So just look at it, and if you don't mind, and just,
These are our copies?
yeah, just give me your thoughts on it.
Okay,
That's all it is.
this is gonna make somebody happy.
Needs to make exclusions for like ballparks during games or schools. When they light up their football fields at night, it does
Right.
do surrounding area.
Great thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
it won't affect that, so.
This is the Dollar General ordinance, if you want to know what it's now.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
Dollar General built next to somebody's house.
well, and not just that house, you
Oh,
know.
I mean, I understand.
Everywhere
I mean,
they've got them, they've got these lights.
oh, I don't disagree with you.
It's the recommendation.
This is just the one that's,
Chair to adjourn this meeting.
Hey, I move for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
No, second.
Talbot?
Hey, is there a motion to adjourn the ordinance committee meeting?
No,
I move.
Second by Bill Harris.
Motion by Mr. Frog Talbot, second by Mr. Harris. This meeting's now adjourned.
thank goodness.